Hello, and welcome to our Bible study on the book of Revelation. As I mentioned early on that we were going to be going through the works of John, starting in the book of John, and then going through 1st, 2nd, 3rd John, which we did, and then Jude, which was written by somebody not John, but we covered it anyway, and then Revelation, because it's written by John. So here we are at Revelation, much sooner than I thought, but here we are. It just so happens to coincide with the pandemic, and people are thinking, crisis, and it is a crisis for a lot of people, unfortunately. But it just so happened to work out that way. So, hey, maybe it's a God thing, okay? So, the book of Revelation, the end of the world as we know it. Now, in this part one, what we're going to do is do an overview of the topic of the end of the world, or eschatology, specifically as it relates to the book of Revelation. And one of the things that's very helpful about Revelation is that if you take a look at the Gospels, Jesus did make reference to the end of the world quite a number of times. And when he did, his disciples were like, when is this going to happen? Okay, exactly what do we look for when it's the end? Because Jesus indicated, it's going to be soon. Well, soon, it's 2,000 years later, so it obviously wasn't that soon, okay? So what did he mean by soon? Well, I think for individuals, one of the things that my grandfather taught me when he was 80 is that he just said to me, he was dying at the time, he had lung cancer, and he said to me, I want to let you know that life goes by way, way faster than you think it will. I remember very clearly playing in that field over there, playing baseball with my friends. I was your age, and it really wasn't that long ago. I want you to understand that life goes by much faster than you can possibly imagine. And so soon for the individual is literally soon, because our lives are over much quicker than we think. Each decade seems to go by twice as fast as the decade before. So it's good to be ready, because it's going to be over soon, so we need to live like it. Like this life that we have now is the preamble for the next step, for the next stage, for the next level of existence. And that next level is actually more important than this one. So how we live here, it matters. Okay, so the book of Revelation talks about the end of this particular dispensation. One of the problems in talking about the end times and the prophecies regarding the end times is that we are very prone to get it wrong. When given a little bit of information about what it will be like in the end times, we quickly make the assumption that it's talking about now. And Christians are notorious for getting it wrong, for thinking that they are in the end times. And they were wrong, because again, for hundreds and thousands of years, Christians have been making the mistake of thinking that their generation was the last one and that they were living in the end times, when in fact they were not. When I was in college back in when I was about 19 years old, it was the 70s, and a book came out called When Your Money Fails by Mary Stuart Ralphie. And I read that book. I forgot who gave it to me, but I was so impressed. I was like, whoa, man, it's the end of the world right now. And she was very convincing. She provided evidence that there were certain aspects about Anwar Sadat that added up to 666, that he and Menachem Begin had orchestrated this peace accord so that Israel and Egypt were friends after being enemies for all these years, and therefore he's for sure the Antichrist, and pretty soon our money was going to fail because it was the end times and we're about to get a mark on our forehead or our arms or our wrists there, so got me all excited about that. Well, I told my Bible study leader, Mike Shea, and he immediately, I showed him the book, and he read a little bit and said, this is bull, this is nonsense. This lady's she's claiming divine revelation. She's claiming divine visitations through her dreams and visions and stuff, and no, don't believe a word of it. Well, I was hard-headed. You didn't even read the whole book, man. Okay, so I went out and told a few folks about it. Biggest mistake of my life. Or one of the biggest mistakes. I've had a few mistakes that I would like to take back, but that was a big whopper right there. I told people that I shouldn't have, got them excited about it, and so when Anwar Sadat was assassinated, okay, just a few years later, well, my credibility went to zero after that. For the people that I got excited about that stupid book, Here I thought we were in the end times. I thought Anwar Sadat might be the Antichrist because of that dumb book. I was made to look like an idiot. My credibility was shot with several people. And it should have been. I mean, if I don't know what I'm talking about regarding the Antichrist, how can you trust what I'm saying about the Christ? So I learned a really painful lesson by getting into this end time stuff and getting too excited about it and joining the club of all those Christians in history that have mistakenly thought that they were in the end times. Don't want to make that mistake. Don't want to damage something as valuable as my credibility ever again. Throughout history, Christians have made this particular screw up. Okay, we thought Nero was the Antichrist. Then we thought Constantine. And then Pope Leo. Luther actually identified Pope Leo as the Antichrist, okay? Napoleon was thought to be the Antichrist. Hitler, okay? A lot of people besides Anwar Sadat. Even Henry Kissinger was thought by some to be the Antichrist. They were wrong. They were not living in the end times, and they got it wrong. Okay, so it's important that we don't go off half-cocked about this stuff and assume that obviously every evil person that we can identify must be the Antichrist, because if this person's the Antichrist, then you're living in the end times. It takes more than somebody with 666 somehow associated with them to identify them as the Antichrist and as our age as being the last one. Okay? Now, when looking at the book of Revelation, you got to understand there is a lot of symbolism. And these are things that were shown to John. They were shown to him, and then he described them for us. Okay? So he's writing down his observations. He is not writing down a narrative as to the specific events of the last days. He's showing you what God showed him, and much of it is overtly symbolic. And so the problem with symbolism is that it's very much open to interpretation. And so it's hard to take that in a really concrete way. Some of it is very concrete, and specific things are said. And when that happens, we need to take those specific things and go, oh, here's something we can hang on to. This is concrete. This right here, this is concrete. We can set this on a shelf and say, okay, this looks like for sure it's what's going to happen during that last 7-year horrible period. We got it. And then other things are maybe, could be this, maybe this. And that's how I'm going to approach this. And so some of the things I think are pretty safe to assume. Other things, not so much. Okay, so we're going to cover that. Now, we start out, I'm not going to go right now, this is just an overview, so I'm just going to go over some of the bad things that happened to planet Earth during this horrible last period called the tribulation period, okay? I'm going to skip some of the heavenly stuff because I'm going to focus on the bad stuff and what's happening. The goal of doing that is to point out that when people are in the Great Tribulation, the last 7 years before the end of Earth, when people are in that time, it will be very obvious that the Earth is over. Okay, there won't be any question, gee, I wonder if Anwar Sadat is the Antichrist and we're in the end times. No. There won't be any question about it. It will be very obvious. All right? Now, we start out in Revelation 6 talking about 4 horsemen. Most people today are familiar with the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. And they are described as symbolic. So John saw 4 horsemen, but it was explained to him that they were symbolic right from the beginning. Okay, so we have a mixture of symbolism and description together. Okay, so we got the first horseman who was on a white horse, and then the next one was on a red horse, and the next one was on a black horse, and the next one was on a green or a pale horse. And it's actually described kind of what they represented. Okay? Now, it would be really much nicer. I would definitely have appreciated if things would have been explained more concretely. It would have been very lovely to have a book of Revelation where things are specifically stated, such as 2,032 years from now, there will arise a man named Bartholomew Bar Homer, and he will be the Antichrist. And when he poppeth up, the world will end in 7 years. You will recognize Bartholomew by his yellow skin and pointy hair. And here's a drawing so that you know what to look for. That would have been helpful, okay? But we don't have that. We've got these general descriptions. And so when it comes to identifying the Antichrist, It's not quite that simple. Something about him adds up to 666. What that is, I don't know. Okay, I guess we'll know it when we get there. So we got a lot of symbolism in Revelation, just letting you know that. Okay, so it makes interpretation a little bit hard. Overview of biblical eschatology. Let's get into it. One of the complaints against the Almighty is that bad things happen on earth. Evil people are allowed to make victims of neutral people, I guess, or good people, and they get away with it. They don't seem to be punished. They seem to flourish, and they do it again and again. People get robbed, people get beaten and raped, and just they lose things. They get imprisoned falsely, and it's not fair. A lot of things not fair and horrific happen down here. And God, if he's all-powerful, then why doesn't he do something? If he's truly good and sides with good, then why doesn't he actively punish bad behavior? Why doesn't he vent sometimes on the appropriate target? Well, God, from a biblical perspective, he does occasionally vent, and he does have a lot of anger. He stores it up, and he lets it come out at various times. Now, one of the places where he vented his anger was actually 2,000 years ago, when Jesus was tortured and crucified. The pain that he went through, the death that he endured, from a biblical perspective, that was God venting his wrath on the sin of everybody who has faith in Christ. Okay, so when I accepted Christ, one of the things that I recognized was that all of my sins, past, present, and future, were paid for, because it was like shoved inside of Jesus. And so all the suffering that Jesus did and the death that he died should have been mine. I should have had to pay for my lies, for my hypocrisy, for my, the bad things that I did, for the theft and whatever, the hatred, all of the sins that I've done. I should have died for that. And he did it for me. And so God vented his wrath on Jesus, on himself, for my sake and your sake if you've accepted Christ. Okay, so that was one time when God did vent his wrath. Now, one thing that we're probably familiar with is that for those people that have rejected Christ, who don't repent, if you will, who end up in that place we call hell, there is an eternity of suffering, whether that be literal fire and brimstone or some other form of torture. It is bad, and it is never ending. And that is the epitome of God venting his wrath on the individual for all of their sins. So that's another way. He's just saving it up. So all those people that are getting away with the murder and the rape and the theft and all that stuff, well, they're not getting away. There is going to be payment for that, and it happens for eternity. So talk about overkill. They're going to get something for that. So they're not getting away with it. Now, what we have in the book of Revelation is a direct target. Just like the people in hell, that's a direct target of God getting even, God venting his wrath for all the bad things. In the book of Revelation, we have God venting his wrath on the people of earth, and in fact, on the earth itself, for the rebellion that people have done, that people are doing. The people of this time are going to get a full dose of God's displeasure. And that's what we see happening in the last 7 years during this time called the tribulation period. Now, there are a lot of things that are going to be described. We're going to go through it in this particular study. I'm not going to go through everything, but how much of this stuff can be taken literally, how much is figurative, how much means something else, we'll get into that. But there are a lot of things that might be literal, okay? For example, we have a description of massive earthquakes with global volcanic eruptions. We have plagues described, people dying from pestilence, which are plagues. Mass executions for those who refuse to take the mark of the beast, who refuse to align with the government at that time. There's a one world currency. Okay, Earth is ruled by an antichrist regime or person with a false prophet, an alternative religious system to Christianity. There are runaway killer heat waves described, mutant locusts with poisonous stingers, undrinkable contaminated water as a result of meteorite activity. A large meteor strikes the ocean, rendering the ocean dead, killing all marine life. There is massive worldwide famine and death from famine and disease. We got 144,000 unstoppable evangelists. We have a war that results in about 2 billion people dead. These are all things that are described in Revelation. So we're going to get into that. Now, even if a few of those things are to be taken literally, I want you to understand, it will be very obvious to the people living during this time that they are in the last days. These are really cataclysmic, horrific events that have not taken place on a worldwide scale quite like this. We've had something like it with World War II, but this makes World War II look like a kiss on the cheek. Now, there are lots of people who are all into end times prophecy. I mean, they get excited about it, they draw diagrams, and they try to lay it out like there's this scientific plan that happens in this particular chronological order. This is from one of those sites. This is from Beyond Today TV. I know nothing about these people. I just happened, I was looking on the internet, I Googled it, and I pulled this up. So I'm not supporting these people. I'm just saying they made a nice chart here, and I'm going to use this to talk about. That's as far as it goes here, okay? They have this scientific approach where, yeah, first the first four seals happen, then the fifth seal, then the sixth seal, seventh seal, then you get this trumpet, and then the last 7 plagues and so forth, because that's how it's described chronologically in the book of Revelation. But you know, when I look at the book of Revelation, to me it sounds a lot like a dream, okay? And in dreams, things aren't always in chronological order. All right, and so not that John had a dream, you know, he had a vision, but you know, he's describing a vision, and we don't know the rules for this vision. I just don't know that we can look at that and insist that this is the correct order and that these things have to happen exactly in this way. I think there's some room for interpretation, and understand, this is not something that God dictates. It's not like the Ten Commandments, where God dictates to Moses, boom, 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 this is law 1, this is law 10. No, this is a vision he's describing. And to me, you know, I think about visions and dreams, things aren't always in order. So yeah, these are snippets of what occurs during this last period, but the order, you know, it's a vision. You're outside. If he truly were taken out of his body and looked at it from heaven's perspective, the chronology of heaven and the chronology of earth don't necessarily coincide. And so what you're seeing, does that truly represent Earth timeline? I don't know. I can't be sure of that. Maybe, maybe not. I just want to put that out there. Okay? All right. So we're skipping right over to Revelation 6, because that's when the juicy stuff starts happening. That's when things start falling apart on earth. So I'm skipping all the things in heaven. I'm skipping the letters to the churches for now and just going to the bad stuff. And I'm only going to talk about half of it. Okay? All right. So Revelation 6, verse 1. I watched while the Lamb ripped off the first of the 7 seals. I heard one of the animals roar, "Come out!" I looked. I saw a white horse. Its rider carried a bow and was given a victory garland. He rode off victorious, conquering right and left. Now, in that progression of end times events, they list number 1, religious deception, and they reference Revelation 6, 1 and 2 here, okay? And, okay, I'm looking at that and I'm going, how do you get religious deception from that? Now, maybe you're right. Maybe this is the Antichrist, and he somehow develops power over all of the countries on earth so that he has ultimate sovereignty over formerly what were sovereign nations. So America and China and Russia and everybody, they recognize this maybe like if he's like in charge of the United Nations, the United Nations develops global powers that can supersede sovereignty, and he's the head of that. Something like that. Or a body of individuals. I don't know. But you have somebody who conquers to the degree that it brings about world peace. So somebody now in charge with control over the world powers, and there is peace. And so somehow he has become victorious, and whether that's through war or through diplomacy, I don't know, okay? But we have somebody in charge now who is victorious, and there is peace. That much, it sounds like that's the case. So I'm going to be honest about what I don't know here, okay? So, all right. All right. In Matthew 24, they reference this verse too. It says, Jesus said, watch out for doomsday deceivers. Many leaders are going to show up with forged identities claiming, I am the Christ, the Messiah. They will deceive a lot of people. When reports come in of wars and rumored wars, keep your heads and don't panic. This is routine history. This is no sign of the end. Nation will fight nation, and ruler fight ruler over and over. Famines and earthquakes will occur in various places. This is nothing compared to what is coming. Now here, I don't know if this verse relates to that last one. Okay, it's not real strong to me, and I look at this and I'm seeing Jesus saying, look. Okay, here we are, it's 33 AD or 32 AD, and in the future, there's going to be a lot of wars, there's going to be a lot of earthquakes, going to be a lot of people showing up saying, I am the Christ. Don't freak out about that. It's not the end. You're going to see a lot of this. And so I kind of look at this the opposite. I'm saying this is Jesus warning his followers to don't jump the gun and assume that it's the end of the world just because there are wars going on. Okay, that's normal stuff. There in Revelation, one of the reasons we have the book of Revelation is so that we get a clearer picture as to what to expect when it really is the end. Okay? All right. So, moving on to verse 3. When the Lamb ripped off the second seal, I heard the second animal cry, come out. Another horse appeared, this one red. Its rider was off to take peace from the earth, setting people at each other's throats, killing one another. He was given a huge sword. Now, this is a little bit different than the white guy, than the white horse, okay? With the white horse, he conquered, but we don't know that it was conquered through war or there were other types of battles. In the second horse, this is real war. This is bloody war. This could be nuclear war. This is a very big thing. So this is peace from the earth. And so we're looking at a world war scenario with that red horse. It's really hard to see that differently. So whether, this is multiple nations fighting each other, it sounds like that's probably what's going on. You get this picture setting people at each other's throats. So this is pretty bad. Okay, so big time war with that second horse. Next we get to verse 5. When he ripped off the third seal, I heard the third animal cry, come out. I looked. A black horse this time. Its rider carried a set of scales in his hand. I heard a message. It seemed to issue from the four animals. A quart of wheat for a day's wages, or 3 quarts of barley, but all the oil and wine you want. Now this kind of describes famine. All right, there's going to be tremendous famine, inflation, a day's wages for some wheat, that's like, okay, that's $100. I mean, if you make $100 a day, that's a lot for some wheat. So there's horrific inflation and there's going to be famine. Okay, so that's the other horse here. Is it however else you read that black horse, the description that we have here is one of famine. When he ripped off the fourth seal, I heard the fourth animal cry, come out. I looked. A colorless horse, sickly pale, its rider was death, and hell was close at its heels. They were given power to destroy a fourth of the earth by war, famine, disease, and wild beasts. All right, so now we're seeing a logical progression. These four horses follow each other logically, especially the red horse, the black horse, and the white horse. And in Greek, that pale horse was a sickly green color, the color of a dead body. Okay, so yeah, those horses are figurative, but we have the explanation in the text as to what they represent. So if you have a massive war killing multitudes of people, imagine a worldwide nuclear exchange that results in, certainly that causes a breakdown in civilization. You are not going to have medical care. If you are burned from radiation or from being shot with bullets or whatever, you are not going to have medical care. There will be no antibiotics. People will die from infection. People will die from starvation because supply lines will be done. In the middle of this pandemic, we noticed that immediately the toilet paper vanished from the stores within a day. Can you imagine a nuclear exchange? What would happen? People raid the stores. Food is going to be gone. There aren't going to be truckers delivering more food. Not if we have nuclear exchanges going on in this country. Okay, the supply lines will be knocked out and people are going to starve. There will be people dying from all kinds of diseases and from famine. This is a logical progression. And these people will know for sure that it's the end because a quarter of the population will be dead. The quarter of the population of Earth. Right now we're coming up on 8 billion. So if it were to happen somewhere between now and 5 years from now, whatever, you're looking at approximately 2 billion people dead. That is more than the entire population of planet Earth in 1900. We have never seen a war with that kind of devastation. Okay, now as we're going through this, I want you to keep in mind that some of these descriptors may be overlapping, and I get a feeling that that's what's going on. I don't know for sure because this is a book that I can't say with certainty exactly what the chronology or what it's even saying sometimes. So I want to again make that disclaimer. But I get the sense that some of these descriptions are describing the same things in different ways. Okay, so now we get to verse 9.
When the Lamb opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of everyone who had been killed for speaking God's message and telling about their faith. They shouted, "Master, you are holy and faithful. How long will it be before you judge and punish the people of this earth who killed us?" Then each of those who had been killed was given a white robe and told to rest for a little while. And they had to wait until the complete number of the Lord's other servants and followers would be killed.
Now, here, this is a situation where most often Christians read this and they say, well, Christians are being murdered. The government in power, the Antichrist regime, if you will, is persecuting and killing many Christians and turning many into martyrs. So that's a possible explanation, and that may be happening. There is some language to that in this paragraph that is indeed the case. However, it could be they're in heaven, and so all of the people that have been martyred from the year 0, from the time of Christ all the way till now, I mean, they're all there, and so maybe it's all of those guys. So I don't know. So it could be either one. It could or all. It could be both. That the people who are being murdered at that time are complaining, and along with all of the other people throughout history that have been martyred. Okay.
When I saw the Lamb open the sixth seal, I looked and saw a great earthquake. The sun turned as dark as sackcloth, and the moon became as red as blood. The stars in the sky fell to earth just like figs shaken loose by a windstorm. Then the sky was rolled up like a scroll, and all mountains and islands were moved from their places. The kings of the earth, its famous people, and its military leaders hid in caves or behind rocks on the mountains. They hid there together with the rich and the powerful, and with all the slaves and free people. Then they shouted to the mountains and the rocks, "Fall on us. Hide us from the one who sits on the throne and from the anger of the Lamb. That terrible day has come. God and the Lamb will show their anger, and who can face it?"
Now, I'm going to be honest. When I first read this back when I was in college, my mouth was like, what? This is so unscientific. All right, this is just nonsense. This can't happen. This is just no way, okay? Because, all right, sun can't turn black as ink. If the sun goes out, we all dead. I mean, you're talking about we're going to freeze to death in a very short time. So if the sun goes out, we're in big time doo-doo here, okay? So how would that happen? We'd have to go nova, okay? And if the sun went nova, we're dead instantly. It's not just going to flicker out, all right? So that doesn't make sense. And moon all bloody, all right? There's not enough creatures on the moon to make blood, for one thing, okay? So like, where does the blood come from? The moon isn't made of cheese, and it doesn't have skin and blood, so where'd that come from? Stars falling out of the sky. What? Excuse me? Stars are like, as far as I know, stars are these big, giant things that are sometimes bigger than our sun. And if one star were to come into our solar system, it's lights out, and it would kind of have to be on its way. It's not just gonna come here because it's a long way, and even if they travel at the speed of light, hello. So I'm just saying there's a lot here that doesn't make sense. Sky snapshot, no, I don't think so. Okay, all right, so a lot of stuff here seems very unscientific, but you got to keep in mind John is describing what he observed. He's doing the best that he can with his first century mind. I think we have to interpret this differently, okay? So I think it's a mistake to take this literally. He's describing as best he can. How do we interpret that? How do you get anything logical out of this kind of a description? Well, I can come up with one possible scenario, okay? Now, one of the reasons why I mentioned that I don't necessarily think we can take things in the chronological order was because of what I'm about to say. And I could be wrong. I could be wrong. This is my interpretation here. But later on, we're going to see that a rather large meteor strikes the Earth. It's described as a flaming mountain of fire hitting the ocean. All right? When that happens, that can result in some pretty cataclysmic activities, such as earthquakes, but more importantly, tectonic activity, volcanic activity can be generated by such a force, resulting in every volcano on the planet becoming active instantaneously, including Yellowstone. All right? So we're going to see massive volcanic eruptions, including supervolcano eruptions, which result in a massive, massive amount of volcanic ash being shoved into the air. I mean, Krakatoa from the 19th century, when it went off, it darkened the skies and lowered temperatures around the globe for a very long time thereafter. Can you imagine 10,000 Krakatoas? All right, so that can happen. So massive earthquakes, massive amounts of volcanic ash in the air everywhere. And we have underground volcanoes, a lot of underground volcanoes. As they go up, you're going to see incredible amounts of steam being generated into the atmosphere. So everywhere where magma meets water, you're going to see steam. And so the atmosphere is going to be so full of volcanic ash and steam that it will be a canopy around the Earth, and seeing through it will be hard. It describes seeing the sun as though through a sackcloth made of black hair. So you can make out the disk of the sun, but it's very faint. You can just make out the sun. It's there, but it's not producing very much light. It turned dark. Okay? And the moon, you're not going to see the a sharply defined moon. You're going to see a patch of red, because that's what happens when you're seeing the moon through dust, through debris, okay? The color, it's shifted red. And so John is describing what he's observing, a sun that has been blackened and a moon that is red. Okay, that's what you see. That's what you would see in a scenario where you had volcanic activity creating this dust vapor canopy around the planet. Now, in terms of the sky disappearing, well, good luck seeing any stars. Other than the sun and the moon, there will not be any celestial bodies. No stars, no planets will be visible. It will be a black sky. And so I believe that's what John is describing, a black sky because of all this activity. So again, I put forth, do you think people will realize that they're in the end times at this time period? Oh, absolutely. Now, how in my mind, as a physician, as a scientist, this is how I would interpret that in terms of something logical. Now, could be all supernatural. I mean, it could be God snapping his fingers and miraculously making this stuff happen, so that the sun, for unexplained reasons, really does look like a dark blot. I mean, maybe that's what happens too. Okay, I can't say for sure that it's not, because hey, we're interpreting here. So I'm just saying, if this is something that's going to follow a logical progression as we understand science today, that's my portrayal of it. And I don't think I'm alone in this. I think others have come up with this as well. So it's not like I'm coming up with something that nobody thought of before. Okay? So why didn't John just come out and say, it's going to be a volcano, dudes? Really bad. Lots of them. Okay? So after the meteor strikes the ocean, volcanic activity is increased. They didn't really have that kind of language back then. You don't see language describing volcanoes. Oh, it was described as mountains with fire, but we didn't have a word like volcano until Mount Vesuvius erupted in 79 AD, wiping out Pompeii and Herculaneum. Okay? So, yeah. Did I say that right? Herculaneum. Okay. But anyway, yeah, that's when volcanology that was when you could actually see a description of volcanoes in human literature. Prior to that, it just wasn't. It was the effects were described, but there wasn't a word volcano. And so he describes the earthquake because they had a word for earthquake. There wasn't a word to describe massive volcanic activity. So John describes the effects of what he was observing. When he describes the stars coming to Earth, this is what I think, okay? Because I don't believe that the stars are going to come to visit Earth. I just don't buy that, okay? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we're wrong about what stars are, and they really are just dots in the sky. I have a hard time swallowing that. So my suspicion is that what John is observing are lava bombs. I mean, think about it. If every volcano on Earth were to suddenly wake up and start coming alive and blasting volcanic activity into the atmosphere, you're going to get a lot of lava bombs. A lot of lava bombs. Volcanoes kick out lava bombs. They come out and they drop. And they come in various sizes. And so John looks up in this video of the world of the end. He doesn't see any stars. Instead, he sees these red and white dots that are falling to the ground, going boom, exploding in fire. And so in his mind, his interpretation is, think about it. He doesn't know what stars are, okay? So in his mind, the interpretation is no stars in the sky where they belong. Instead, we've got these glowing dots that are coming to the earth and hitting the earth all over, okay? So his interpretation is the stars are falling to the earth, okay? When you've got this much volcanic activity, when you've got an ocean that's just been blasted, and the coast have been wiped out. I mean, whatever ocean gets hit, the coast of that ocean are going to get hit with a tsunami like never before. And so lots of death, lots of junk in the air, the sky is not visible, the sun has been blackened. You're going to know, everybody's going to know this is the end. And most people are going to realize that, God is kind of not happy and bad things are happening to the earth, probably because of God. We're going to skip over Revelation 7 because it talks about things in heaven. Remember, in this video, I'm just discussing many of the really bad things that are happening to the earth. We're talking about the last 7 years or the end times. And in this particular talk, we're just going to discuss some of the earlier ones because I want to make a point at the end. Okay, so just let me move on. So we're going to jump ahead to Revelation chapter 8.
The trumpets. The 7 angels now got ready to blow their trumpets. When the first angel blew his trumpet, hail and fire mixed with blood were thrown down on the earth. 1/3 of the earth, 1/3 of the trees, and 1/3 of all green plants were burned.
So what does that tell us? That the people who warned us of global warming were right. The globe is going to warm a lot, but it won't be from emissions. All right, so there's going to be a warming going on here. All right, now the thing is this a new thing? So we've already had massive volcanic eruptions, if my interpretation is correct, and lava bombs all over the place. It sounds to me that this is a kind of a repeat of what we just saw, but it could be in addition. We've got more volcanic activity going on, and so it just keeps happening. Maybe that's what's happening here. But a storm of hail and fire mixed with blood. Now, is it actual blood? Again, it could be. This could be total fiat miracles produced by God, so that these things coming to the sky actually are made of blood. Okay, so that might be true. Maybe that would be God's way of signing it and saying, this is from me. Look at the Bible. I said chunks of blood would be coming out of the sky, and look, here it is. So I can't rule that out. But if this is going to follow a natural progression, it sounds more like he's describing hail and fire mixed with blood, talking about the redness of the lava that's coming out of the sky, and it's present all over the place, and he's looking at pyroclastic flows, which are glowing red like blood, and he's going, wow, I looked everywhere, and there was so much, 1/3 of the earth was burned up by this volcanic activity, and the earth, the think about, why would all of the grass be gone? Why would all the grass be gone? Well, one way is that the entire earth heats up and kills the grass. But if the earth is that hot, it's going to be hard for people to live. So they're going to have to live underground and stuff, if indeed that's what it's talking about. Another possibility is that you just blocked all the sunlight. There is so much dust in the air. There's no sunlight. How long is grass going to be able to thrive in darkness like this without any photosynthesis? How long is that going to happen? So it could be either way. It says the grass was burned up though. So we're kind of leaning more towards the first one because the description of it being burned up. So hey, but it could be John just thinking that it was burned up because of all this stuff, and he looks and the grass is dead. Don't know, didn't see the video. It would have been really nice if a DVD had been included in the first Bible so that he could show, John, what did you see here? God, why don't you give us a video so that one day we'll be able to put it in our machines and see it? That would have been really helpful. It didn't happen. We got this description through a guy from the first century. So we go with it. Well, we'll do the best we can with it, okay?
When the second angel blew his trumpet, something like a great fiery mountain was thrown into the sea. A third of the sea turned to blood, a third of the living creatures in the sea died, and a third of the ships were destroyed.
Now, I described that earlier, and again, according to the chronology, this doesn't happen till all of those earthquakes and all that volcanic activity, if you take a look at the progression in which John describes it. If that progression, if it doesn't have to follow that progression, I would think that this would be the first thing. Okay, I'm just saying. I could be wrong, but I can't be sure that the chronology that John observed from the position of heaven or from having a vision, is that really the actual chronology or not? And the only reason I say this is because this makes a lot more sense if this is the first thing. Okay, I'm just saying. Okay, so, but again, I don't know for sure because, again, it'd be nice if God had written this down for us himself and put it in order so that we'd know for sure that it was the right order, but it's not, so we'll go with this. Okay, anyway, yeah, if you get a meteor striking the ocean, it goes all the way to the bottom. The velocity, I mean, if it's a large enough meteor, it's going straight to the bottom in a microsecond. Okay, it's a lot of power. And when it goes down there, it goes into the floor of the ocean, and what that ultimately does, it kicks up sediment and the minerals from that layer. You're going to turn the ocean into sulfuric acid. Okay, that's literally what happens when you shove a meteor into the ocean floor, is the ocean itself turns into sulfuric acid. And yeah, it kills the living things in the ocean. The tsunami generated, whatever ocean it hits, that tsunami is going to take out every ship sitting on that particular body of water. So yeah, these are logical things that would happen if indeed something like this were to occur. So if you're on a cruise ship, bad time to be on a cruise ship.
When the third angel blew his trumpet, a great star fell from heaven. It was burning like a torch, and it fell on a third of the rivers and on a third of the springs of water. The name of the star was Bitter, and a third of the water turned bitter. Many people died because the water was so bitter.
So what's suggested here is that we started out with a single asteroid. So this would be asteroid number 2, or comet number 2, or whatever. So that first one hit the ocean. This one, like, it breaks up before it gets to the Earth, and it hits multiple sites. Mostly what it's doing is it's damaging the water supply. Okay? So either because of what it kicks up, or because a direct hit to these fresh bodies of water and causes the water to be toxic, so for whatever reason. So a chemical change takes place in the fresh water, so now we have a shortage of water on planet Earth. So now, I'm going to stop here with all the catastrophes. It gets worse, by the way. We're going to talk about that later. I just wanted to give you a taste of just how rough things get in the world of the last 7 years, in this period that we call the tribulation that is described. So in the real apocalypse, you're going to know you're in the apocalypse. There will be no question. All right? So the remaining humans are going to understand that God is deliberately ending life on Earth. If you're into the green thing, too bad for you, because yeah, the rainforests and the oceans, yeah, it's all gone. All right, yeah, nothing's going to be left. So this aspect of life is it's clear that it's coming to an end. So, when I first read about this stuff, I was pretty young. I think I was about 13 when I read my first book. Somebody gave me a book when I was 13 on the end of the world. Okay, that was a lot for a kid, all right? So it's like I just became a Christian, and here I have this book on how the world's going to end. So I would read what I could. My understanding was probably pretty limited, but I remember thinking, all right, these people that are alive during this time, obviously they're going to be like, God help. They're going to be going to God. They're going to be hitting their knees in terror, saying, God, what do I have to do to get right with you? Because clearly I'm about to die and don't really want to go to hell, so want to go to heaven. So what do I have to do? Obviously life is coming to an end, and I need to make a decision. I don't have a lifetime to think about this. I need to get a relationship with you. I need to get right with you. ASAP, for my own sake. That would be logical, but that's not what happens. People are described as being defiant, as continuing to do what they do with no attempts to get right, with no change in their behaviors. In fact, instead of pursuing God, they turn to the occult. They literally turn to demons. Okay, they turn to Satan. I mean, it's like, that sounds nuts. It's like, seriously? I mean, why would anybody turn to the underworld for help when God is destroying the world? Why wouldn't you turn to God? Well, because what I think, this is, again, a theory that I have, so listen to what I'm about to say. I could be wrong, okay? But it just appears to me that in the last 10 or so years, we have a lot of movies and a lot of TV shows with the same theme. And that theme is a celestial being, a powerful entity such as God or a godlike being, is intent on destroying Earth, is intent on destroying life on Earth, destroying mankind, ending the world as we know it. And the hero's job is to fight this entity, to ally itself with reason or with actually Satan or demons in order to save the world sometimes. And I'm going to talk about some examples here. That sounds kind of crazy. If somebody had told me 30 years ago that TV shows and movies would have this theme, that people would literally try to fight God when the world is ending, I'd be like, come on. Why would they, if they don't believe in God, why would you do something like that, for one thing? The other thing is, what a stupid move. But here we are.
The people who lived through these terrible troubles didn't turn away from the idols they had made, and they didn't stop worshipping demons. They kept on worshipping idols that were made of gold, silver, bronze, stone, and wood. Not one of these idols could see, hear, or walk. No one stopped murdering or practicing witchcraft or being immoral or stealing.
All right, so here we go. And we got mention of idolatry, which modern idolatry is more into our wallets than in idols and so forth. But we got this whole thing about witchcraft, turning to the occult. That's a thing. That's a thing that people are doing. Now, again, here's my thesis, that our current entertainment industry is actively influencing the public about how to react in the face of the apocalypse. And in general, what are they doing? A, they're making out God as the villain, okay, to be stopped. He's a villain. And B, they are employing help from unsavory sources such as the underworld, okay? Now, not all of them do both, but clearly they do the first. And here's some examples. One, we're all familiar with the Avengers Endgame, and you got Thanos, who is this super being who is intent on destroying life on Earth by making everybody disappear. And the job of our heroes is to stop Thanos. Okay, so that's a mild case. That's a very mild case of this idea of this particular thesis. I have some stronger ones.
In the truth of your convictions, everything that makes you the greatest heroes on this earth or any other, because that's what it will take to defeat our opponent.
And what exactly does this guy want?
To eliminate the multiverse and replace it with another universe.
One that he can control, just like every other megalomaniac.
Another Earth is gone.
There's only 7 left in the multiverse. It's ironic. I am watching the biggest event in history, the destruction of every Earth, and no one will ever read the story.
These Earths are not the only worlds destroyed. My world died. My family.
The worlds are ending. It's all very biblical, John. Okay, I'm only doing this because I owe you for Maze.
Yeah, you do.
All right, now in the Flash, what we see is this entity called the Anti-Monitor, who has these divine abilities, and he is causing the destruction of not just Earth and our universe, but the multiverse, which is, if you're following this stuff, and it was also present in Avengers Endgame, in the whole Marvel universe, you've got a multiverse where you have an infinite number of possible Earths, and that's another talk, I think. So I'm not going to get into that. But the bottom line is that the Monitor is evil because he wants to end the Earth. He wants to kill everybody. And so our heroes are trying to stop the Anti-Monitor. Now, that second clip that I put out there was, one of the heroes, because this is a crossover event, and so this is from Legends, another TV show there, but talking about the same event, trying to stop the Anti-Monitor, when one of our heroes is this guy who goes to Lucifer to enlist his help to try to stop this. So, again, the bad guy is this Anti-Monitor, this godlike being trying to stop Earth, but they're enlisting the help. Lucifer is a good guy who's trying to stop this divine entity from ending the Earth. Okay, now we're going to take a look at a more obscure TV show that not everybody may have seen, called The Doom Patrol. And in this particular one, they actually call the bad guy, the one that wants to end the Earth, is called the Eye of God, or the Decreator. And in Doom Patrol, you actually see a big eye in the sky.
See it there, the eye of God. It there, the eye of God, weeping angrily over the land of Sodom and Gomorrah. He will reap this land. He will pull the weeds and start again. This broken earth will become the new holy, promised land. Finally, we will be free of the two-legged blights, just as Cain was freed from Abel. What he created for us will be ours again!
I'm out here in Cloverton where many have gathered to witness a disturbing abnormality. As you can see, the eye... Is it looking at me?
Look at them quiver in fear. The rapture begins. And I, the thorn growing in the wilderness, will flourish in their absence.
Rita, where are you going?
I need to find Elliot.
That thing in the sky.
I promised to protect him, Larry. I looked out for him. I have to know if he's okay.
Well, for God's sakes, don't get yourself raptured or anything.
You know, all this could have been avoided if you Halloween costumes come to life had just done as I said.
We are lucky. You're so lucky. You and your squishy friend. We are in the chosen place. A special vantage point to watch from as the world disappears. Bit by bit. Person by person, home by home. Nurnheim will be the last vestige looked upon by the eye. It's a very good day.
I went with my gut. And my gut says you deserve a break. We both do. So it's the end of the world. But we have time. We should do something. Something special.
Like what?
Anything. What have you always wanted to do? Place you've always wanted to see. Food you've always wanted to taste. Anything. Whatever it is, we'll do it.
You see, it turns out the psychiatric patients had a flair for the creative. Who would have known?
When the decreator appears in the sky, you will know it is time to call upon the recreator. In order to do so, a boy, known as the rewritten book, covered in ancient script, must be read.
Does it have to be a boy?
I also have an issue with the overt use of male gender pronouns in this exercise.
Glorious Steinem over here.
Suck a tailpipe, Marilyn.
How about a dog instead of a boy? I like dogs.
My God. Legend. Avatar Sabes Fishesh Kuta. Suchi Anjing Karing Istemiwa.
The Recreator.
What's going on?
I think it's a staring contest.
Okay, now this had to be one of the stupidest plots I've ever seen in all of television or movies. But basically, the premise of the story is that people's faith have created this evil god called the Decreator. People's faith in the end times brought about this decreation event where it destroys people by rapturing them, by dissolving them into nothing. And that's how it's going to destroy everybody on earth. So their solution was to go back in time and create a religion, because since religion created the evil Decreator, a religion can create the recreator. And so they go back in time to a psychiatric facility and enlist the help of psych patients to make up a new religion so that it will grow, so that in the presence they can have enough people that believe in it, so that they create this magical dog that'll have these magic words, and if you say the magic words, it creates the recreator to have a staring contest with the decreator and therefore halt the end of the world. So again, the premise is that religion is the bad guy here for creating the decreator in the first place. And any god that wants to make people disappear and to end the world is clearly evil and must be fought by our heroes. Okay, next we have a clip from one of the, or in fact, the longest running TV show in history. Certainly the longest running show right now. I think it's in its 15th or 16th season, called Supernatural. Most of you are probably familiar with it, and if you've been following it, you'll know that in this last season, the premise is that Chuck, who is God, the God of the universe, the God of all universes, is this petulant young man who basically created humanity for his own entertainment. He gets bored easily and walks off, is not paying very close attention, and so evil is allowed to roam the earth because he has the power to do something but chooses not to. He is just watching it for entertainment, and he's bored, he's angry, and so he's going to erase it all. All right, and so he is destroying all of the universes, all of the multiverse that he has created, saving the Dean and Sam universe for last, of course. But that's what's going on, and so they have to stop him. So this is basically a clip about them trying to stop him.
Sure. In that case, why don't you tell us about the occultum?
What about it?
We need it.
Why?
To kill God. Turns out that Hail Mary that you and Cass tried, it worked. God's back. He's pissed. And he's gonna murder the world. Unless we stop him.
So you want me to be on your side, against God?
I mean, we are better looking.
No. I'm not going to make God my enemy. Because he's God.
Well, you don't have a choice.
You wouldn't.
Try us.
I don't have it.
Then who does?
So are you ready?
Truly.
I am.
Good to hear. Because we need to be ready and vigilant and not stupid. God, if he catches on to what we're doing, everything comes crashing down.
Okay. Now, what is interesting here is that rather than call God the anti-monitor or the decreator or something like that, they go out and they refer to him as God. And their hero here, or one of the main heroes who is going to actually do the physical killing of God, is the character Jack. And if you know anything about the Supernatural series, you know who Jack is. Jack is the son of Satan. Yes, that's right. Not kidding. Son of Lucifer. So think about that. Biblically speaking, the Antichrist is referred to as the son of Satan. Okay? And here we have a TV show where God is the enemy for causing the end of the world, and the only hope for mankind is the son of Satan. So, what am I saying? Do I think these TV executives and movie people get together and come up with this stuff and they're secretly Satan worshipers? No. I think that they've come up with this stuff independently. I think that there are forces working behind the scenes to prepare the hearts of the population so that when it is clear that we are in the apocalypse and the world is ending and God is at fault, rather than humbling themselves and falling on their knees and trying to get right with God so that their souls can be okay in the next life, instead they align with Satan. They literally run to the occult for rescue. The idea being the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And I think that mindset is kind of being set up right now through our entertainment. I mean, it seems that way. Maybe you want to disagree with me. Okay, that's okay. But I'm saying these aren't the only shows like that. I could go on and on. I've seen a lot of television, a lot of that have had this very same theme. Those are the first three that came off, or actually four that just came off the top of my head, and that I happen to have clips for. So for whatever, but that seems to be the case. So that's kind of an overview of what the true apocalypse is going to look like. It's not, yes, there will be pestilence, there will be sickness like this. I don't think that the coronavirus is part of the end of the world. I think that could potentially influence things so that we do end up with a centralized power. This could contribute to that one world government type of thing. It's possible. I'm not sure, of course, but it's possible. But the real end of the world, we won't have to guess. We won't have to guess who the Antichrist is. This is a world leader that will arise in a time of absolute cataclysmic, horrific events, such as what I've just described here. Okay, so we won't be able to make that stupid mistake that I made when I was a teenager. Okay, so I don't know if this brings comfort or not, but I think the book of Revelation is worth reading, even though a lot of it is symbolic. There is quite a bit of it that does kind of make sense if you understand that you don't take everything literally. Okay, some of these things can be understood figuratively, and some of these things, in understanding them figuratively, you can kind of see how it could fit together to describe a logical progression, such as meteor hits Earth, resulting in massive geologic instability, earthquakes, and the eruption of multiple volcanoes at the same time, giving rise to the events, the horrific, crazy, weird events that are described in the book of Revelation. Okay, so that's part one. We're going to be going through the whole book of Revelation, so I just wanted to give you an overview so that you kind of know what we're in for. All right, thank you for watching. Stay safe, and God bless.